Answer should be over. Officially at that point. On register? Who registered so far? Anyone registered? Seniors. Already juniors. Yeah. Now we're just watching the classes fill up. The worst part. Okay. We'll see. Sorry, just need a second. Okay, so last class we were starting to talk about this idea of persuasion. We went through Cialdini's 7 paths to persuasion, and we started to think about different ways in which other ways we can think about persuasion. Basically, the target, who is being persuaded, who is doing the persuading, and how are they being persuaded. So here we're thinking about the method, right? Like, so when I'm trying to persuade you, how might I go about doing that persuading? And so we're going to talk about kind of like how the quality of the message can impact if we're persuaded, and this idea of the identifiable victim effect. So quality, it was election day in 13 states. I don't think Massachusetts had anything on the ballot, so we didn't vote. But you can see here there are 2 kinds of ads, and one is low quality, like they just kind of film somebody in front of some colored walls, as well as like outside. Versus on the right, there's photos of him like in an office, like in front of a chalkboard at home. And it's a little bit more high quality in the production value. And so what they did is they asked people, how likely are you to vote for this candidate based on not seeing anything about him? So about their pure control, or watching the low quality ad, or watching the high quality ad. And they did this both like immediately after having watched the ad, and then they followed up later, a couple weeks down the line, and asked again. They said, hey, you came in, you watched an ad about this guy running. How likely are you to vote for him? And what do we see that happened in time 1? So right after voting, or right after watching the video, who is more likely to vote for this candidate? The top one. Oh no, sorry. So I was saying, like, looking at the top one. Sorry, which pure control, low quality or high quality was like most likely high quality, right? So if you got to watch that high quality ad, you were more likely to say like, yeah, I want to vote for this person, even though what he said in the ad didn't change. And then they followed up 2 weeks later, and what do they see 2 weeks later?
Is the explicitly to the 2 weeks?
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
So the high quality went down, but well, actually the low quality of pure control went up after some time, but the difference between them all was less.
Difference was less, yeah. And you said you're going to say, but you said it went down, but We're going to talk more about the high quality. Like, is it still better than the other two?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So even 2 weeks later, like, yes, I agree, right? Like it went down, right? And that makes sense. You watched the ad 2 weeks ago. Are you really going to remember what it was like? Probably not. But it still had some impact, which suggests that ads can work, right? At least after 2 weeks, you're still remembering that high quality ad to the point that you're showing that you'd still want to vote for this person more than if you watch the low quality ad. And so high quality messages tend to be really effective for people high in motivation. Like, I want to learn more about this candidate. I'm interested in politics. I want to know, be the best informed voter. That tends to be people who are highly motivated because they may be personally affected by this information. I need to know. I think it's like I'm personally affected, but I'm persuaded by Stonehill saying they're going to build a new ice rink because I'm personally affected by their financial decisions. I might really care about this topic, or I might like to think. Right? These are all different ways in which I might be motivated to want to care. I might be personally affected. I might just have a general interest in this topic, or I just like to think. I'm a thinker. On the other hand, you need to have the ability to be able to process said ad. That is, we can't be distracted. You have to actually have the person sit down, not be distracted, and understand what it's being told to you. I still have zero idea what health insurance is. And I'm sure there's a lot of important things that I need to understand about my health insurance, and I do not. And so when those ads come on the TV or I get information from Stonehill about it, I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. I bet that's a great choice. No idea. No idea. Just kind of pick which one at random, right? Whatever's the cheapest. And so this are ways, and because we know that if I want to persuade you, then I know you need to not be distracted and understand the content. So I'm going to quote unquote like dumb things down, right? Make it understandable. So that way it's easy to understand. Or I'm going to try to convince you that it is personally affecting you. This isn't your vote matters. Right? No, it doesn't, but they're going to convince you it does. Why? Because you're personally affected by this. And that can get you out to vote. And in doing so, right, we're dumbing things down. I'm trying to influence you to do something. I'm trying to make it easier for you to understand. What kind of social influence is at play when I'm trying to give you as much information as possible? Try and get you to do something because I need you to know this is the right choice. Vote yes. I'm not trying to get you to say, well, most people are voting yes, so you should vote yes too. Or I like people who vote yes. I'm telling you, these are the reasons and why you should vote yes. What kind of social influence we learned about that is about this idea of learning more. And maybe we make decisions because we don't know enough. That's the one being liked, right? Normative. Like I act in certain ways because I want to be liked. And so what's the other one that isn't normative? I'm not voting because one way or the other because I want to be liked, but because maybe I don't know the correct answer. And so someone's trying to tell me what the correct thing to do is. We might not intervene in a problem emergency because of informational social influence, right? We don't have full information. And so when we give people the information and make sure our message quality is understandable, we are trying to give more information to get you to the behavior we want, right? Trying to break that informational social influence piece that I don't know what to do because I don't have the information. Let me help you. This is the information that I want you to know. I won't tell you any information I don't want you to know. But ads aren't just lists of stats. That was kind of Elizabeth Warren's thing. She just wanted to like tell you that she had a plan for everything, and that was great, but it didn't really sell people. Uh, what we see a lot is I really don't know if I see them that much anymore in like socials, but back in the day, uh, and have like, Sarah McLachlan singing in the arms of an angel, and a little like puppy that needs your money and support or something, or a child that needs a donation from you in order to live. And it's a very emotionally moving ad. It's like, yeah, take my money. It's emotionally heavy, right? It's vivid. You remember it. You are influenced by things that you remember, the things that remind you of things. Messages are persuasive when they are vivid, when they're emotionally interesting, when they're provoking certain thoughts. But vividness, like bam, flash, bang, boom, works until it doesn't, right? There's an issue that potentially it's too much. Everywhere, Everything All at Once, fantastic movie. You should watch it if you haven't. And at the end of the movie, I looked over and Robin is crying. And like, did you like it? She was like, no. I'm like, okay, but you're literally crying over how beautiful a movie that was. She's like, that's not why I'm crying. Potentially, there was so much happening, so much vividness in that movie that it overwhelmed her and didn't fail to persuade her that it was a good movie. She had cognitive overload. She was thinking too many things. As a result, she was not convinced by the movie that it was good. You also can likewise be distracted by the vividness and maybe in the wrong ways. Robin and I have arguments, and she tries to say that veal is sad. It's not right to eat baby cows and they're cute. I'm going, they are really cute, and that's why I want to eat them. Like the vividness of their cuteness distracts me from the point, or Robin hopes that it would distract me to the point that veal sounds yummy. Like, no, 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 focus on this part. Don't focus on this other part. And at the same time, this idea of having things that are emotionally evocative can also have problems if it leads us to be confused. There's some evidence to suggest that so many people were making jokes about, oh, I should just inject bleach to feel like to get better and get cured from COVID, that people started to forget and not take COVID itself as seriously as they should, right? If we can make a joke over its curing, then the thing itself must also be a joke. It leads to confusions of the society trying to figure out like what is important. This emotional vividness of leads you to get confused and get persuaded on the wrong thing. The vividness comes most into focus on this idea of the identifiable victim effect, where I thought I had the YouTube link. Pretty sure this is Boston Children's. They had an ad that I had found, and they're showing the amazing work and research and curing that happens at Boston Children's Hospital. Really fantastic, wonderful things happen there. But they don't just have a doctor in front of a screen telling you about the curing. They show you a really cute baby. Like, how do you not look at that and go, I want to help kids like this? What they're doing is they're giving you a victim to identify. And look at this person. Don't think about all of the kids who have cancer. Think about this kid who has cancer. And that is very vivid. Why? Because one, it's just the case for us that manipulating people on emotions works a lot better than trying to convince them via reason. So if I can make you feel sad about a child, that's going to work a lot better than telling you the statistics of childhood cancer. It's also easier for you to imagine when the ad goes like, little Timmy here. Like, oh, Timmy, you know? When we look at the little puppies that pop up and we're like, oh, it's so cute. I always like open it up to find the names. We go, oh, look, his name is Peanut. Oh, isn't that adorable, little baby Peanut? But it helps us imagine more. And it's nice to know who we're helping. Like, we are guided to help others. It's easier to help others when I know who it is I'm helping. I've had this argument with Stonehill a few times. They're like, oh, well, we want more money for sure, but no one wants to give money to sure. I was like, bullshit. Like, you have people who have taken part in this wonderful like research experience program who have graduated and now actually make real money. And you don't want to go up to them and be like, don't you want to sponsor little Susie to also be able to take part in this program? We'll call it the, they'll be named after you, but you can meet that student who your money funded. Like, it's gonna work. Like, no, we don't want to bother our alumni for that. Like, oh, you want to bother them for an ice rink, though. But besides emotion, fear. Fear is a great emotion to you. Fear is very vivid. You feel fear. You remember fearful things. And it works as long as I tell you how to get rid of the fear. It doesn't help if I scare you. End of sentence. And so when you see attack ads say, don't vote this person, vote this other person. They'll save you. They'll protect you. They're telling you how to stop being afraid. Right? They're giving you explicit instructions and help reduce the fear. Are you scared? Do this, you'll stop being scared. And it works. Attack ads show up all the time because they're very effective. They're very vivid. You remember them. And they last for about a month. So that study we had showed the vividness lasted about 2 weeks. The sweet spot is about a month. So that's why the month of October before any election, that's when all the attack ads start showing up because they have 1 month until they're not effective anymore. So the last month you have a mad explosion of ads because they know this is the time that we can get you to change your vote. I like to just show this one as a interesting example of different cultures. So one of these ads is from the United States, and another one of these ads, supposedly, though I have my own doubts, supposedly is from Japan. Again, I really don't think so because then wouldn't the ad also be in Japanese? But maybe the idea of the ad. And here, the book's talking about this idea that like there are individualistic cultures, cultures that we like think more about ourselves. And there are other kinds of cultures that think more in terms of the group. Right? So if the group succeeds, we succeed. If that is the case, then which one of these ads might be more focused on or be given to cultures that focus on the group?
By the way,
Right one. Why the right one?
because it shows like how getting the camera could positively influence the group or like capture the moment forever.
Captures the moment for everybody, right? We're all included in this moment. It's remembering how we all experience this thing. But on the left, it's you taking a selfie of yourself, right? You're taking a picture of yourself. There's one person and the camera's focused on you. And so that would be more like when we're tailoring our messages, it does matter to think of like, well, who are we talking to, right? Like what kind of individual is getting this message? And how does that change how we talk about things? We as individuals also are influenced differently, right? The target, who is being targeted to be influenced? Sometimes we call it like the audience, right? Like who is watching my persuasion? Who is watching my ad? The first way we can think about this is what we call need for cognition. On a whole, we can say, just like social dominance orientation, right-wing authoritarianism, we can split people into two groups. People who have a high need for cognition and people who have a low need for cognition. Need for cognition are people who like complex problems, like to debate, like to think hard about arguments. Maybe they are the ones that do the New York Times mini crossword every day. And you have other individuals who aren't a big fan of complex problems. This says nothing about their intellect or how smart they are. Just like, do you enjoy a puzzle? You can say yes, you can say no. It doesn't say anything about your intelligence, just do you like that kind of thing? People who are low in need for cognition might prefer trusting their gut. Prefer just like a simple answer. Just tell me what I should do. Should I do this or do that? What is the right answer? Be low in need for cognition. So if we're high in need for cognition, then we are more likely to be persuaded by those high quality arguments. Like, these are the reasons why you should do this thing, A, B, C, and D. And I've thought very hard about it. People low in a need for cognition might just look and say, yeah, but like, what is my pop idol like? A few years back, I decided I wanted to try getting into gin. I like gin now, but I didn't know anything about gin, and I didn't have the time to think about it. So I literally don't care. And there's this YouTube channel called Binging with Babish. He's a guy and he's like cooks. He makes beautiful meals and they tend to be referencing like pop culture. And he was advertising some gin, right? Like they had paid him to advertise gin. That is now the only gin I drink. Not for any reason to do with the gin, but because Babish drinks that or says he does, right? It's not, he probably doesn't. I don't know. But he was advertising it, so now that is the gin I drink. I didn't want to think that hard about it. So here we have, I tried to like kind of draw the arrow. People who are low in their need for cognition. I like simplicity. I like things kind of very clear. People high in their need for cognition on the right. I like to think things through. And they're given either strong arguments for something or weak arguments. Overall, you can see strong arguments are more persuasive, right? We like them more. Regardless of your need for cognition, we like strong arguments. But there's more of a difference for the high need of cognition than the low for weak arguments, right? Like people who are high in their need for cognition really care about strong arguments. People who are low, yeah, I like it a little bit more, but it's not that big of a deal. You see how it's different based on our personality. If I'm high on my need for cognition, I'm really going to care about the strength of the argument. Low, not as much. There's this thing, hang on, I'm going to try to explain this differently. In memory stuff, one thing I remember I teach in intro about memory is this idea that if you are currently sad, your partner just broke up with you, life sucks, and you know next week you have an exam, the best thing to do is stay sad. Do not get happy. Do not get over that breakup. And that it's better to be in the same mood that you learn material to be in the same mood that when you're tested on the material. Right? That you want to have your moods match. Mood matching also can work in persuasion in the sense that if my ad makes you sad, then what I'm asking you to do should keep you sad. If my ad makes you happy, what I want you to do should be something that makes you happy. And maybe not, so it's, let's see, where did I didn't write a good example here. If you're in a good mood, you're more receptive to positive message. So if the ad gets you in a good mood, I want to keep you in that good mood. I want it to be all rise, no fall. And you can see that kind of here, that if you are sad, you have a stronger preference when the message is also sad. This bar is higher than when the message is angry. But if you are angry, having a message framed in terms of anger is more important. I've been arguing with my local political group about this because they keep her, until I finally yelled at them and they finally have stopped. Every email they send be like, I know it's rough out there. I was like, oh my God. And they're just like, life is terrible. I know if you want to give up, I understand. And I was like, oh my God, what are we saying? Like, this is so sad. I don't feel sad. Like, that's not what I want people to feel. That's not persuasive. We need to be speaking in terms that are persuasive to what people are actually feeling. You might be sad. You better work that out on your own. And the last piece is age. Oops. Eh. Wait. Okay. Sorry. Age, but I want to like talk through the study first. That's what it is. Yes. Okay. So in this study that they did, we had two groups of kids. Early adolescent kids and middle adolescent kids, so 12 or 15. We have them watch a video. Before the video really starts, one of three things happens. The screen is blank for 10 seconds. The screen says, the influencer has been paid to promote Fanta during this video. So maybe it would have said, Babish has been paid to promote. Yeah, I don't even know what the gin is. I just know what it looks like. The Alchemist, the yeah, it's called I don't know. Doesn't matter. I paid for it. The influencer is paid to promote Fanta during this video, or in a third condition, the influencer is paid to promote Fanta in this video to make you like Fanta. Fanta. It's Fanta. And then they ask the kids these three questions. Is this video made to make people like Fanta? Is this video made to make people want Fanta? And is this video made to make people like Fanta? So 1/3 of the time they're told nothing. They just see a video and the influencer's like, look at this, yum, 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 I'm drinking it. A third of the time they're told they are paid to promote it. And the third of the time they're told they are paid to promote it to make you like it. So there are how many total conditions? How many possible combinations of conditions are there in this study? Six. Yes. How'd you get six?
Yeah, early adolescence for all three and the middle adolescence for all three.
Early adolescence, all three, plus middle adolescence for all three gets us six. Very nice, baby. Yeah. And so what is interesting is this were the results. You have to trust the little colored arrows more than the graph. Early adolescence is my orange arrows. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry. Early adolescence is my purple arrows. Look at that. I can't even understand my own graph. Or this darker color. Middle adolescence is the gray on the right, or also the orange arrows there. Solid line versus dotted line. The first one is absent. They just saw a blank screen for 10 seconds. Nothing. Second one was told they were paid to promote it. And this one was said they were paid to promote it to get you to like it. What is our concern about our 12 to 14-year-olds? What's missing?
I mean, you gotta be like very explicit with them for them to know that they're being advertised to or persuaded, something's persuading them. Like it takes a lot of work more for them to realize that something's trying to convince them.
Yeah, right. You have to say they are being paid to do this to get you to like it, for them to be like, oh, I'm being targeted. I understand now, right? If they just say they were being paid, they're like, okay. So, right? That they are more persuadable in a sense because they don't know that they're being persuaded. Right. And that's like kind of the last thing about persuasion when it comes to age and the target is that if you know you're being persuaded, you're less likely to be persuaded. But kids, those impressionable youth, they don't recognize when they're being targeted. That's one of the big concerns about, the internet, the children. They don't know, they don't recognize an ad. Even when you're told this person was paid to talk about this thing, they don't understand that means it's an ad and that they're being led to believe that they should want this thing. But once you get a little bit older, our 15-year-olds, they start to pick up on it. They go, no, 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 no. They're trying to get me to like this thing. So as we get older, we become less likely to be persuaded. Personally, I think that's slightly incorrect. I feel like there's like a U-shaped curve or a U-shaped curve that way. Yeah. Like our grandparents get persuaded real quick, right? Mom and dad are like, oh, you know what I saw on the Facebook the other day? And I'm like, okay, but that's not real, right? I don't know. It was on Facebook. And I'm like, you raised me to not talk to strangers. Now you're just following some random person and believing everything they say. So I think maybe technology has also changed this in various ways, and we need to kind of explore that more. All right, this will, there's so many. Oh no, did all my, they did. That's why it looks crazy. Oh, it's supposed to pop up very slowly. And now it's not. Okay, do I even have, is that even working? Here. Oh, it was.
Year will be even buggier than ever because the cycles of the 13 and the 17-year cicada broods will overlap. Why cycles of that amount of time specifically? Well, researchers suggest periodical cicadas are less likely to be killed by predators that have 2 or 3 year life cycles by emerging on these prime numbered years. To which math teachers everywhere said, I guess prime numbers aren't so lame after all.
Right, and so one thing you can think about is like, how does a teacher persuade you to find something interesting? Today I tried to figure out how to get my stats students to ask questions. Answer's still out. I have no idea. Don't know. They had no answers either, which makes sense because I failed to ask anyway. But we can imagine there's a teacher who says, I want you to understand prime numbers. Everything we've learned thus far would say the first thing that hits is the target. Who is that teacher talking to? It's talking to the students. And so the students have certain features, right, that we need to decide the target characteristics. Am I interested in this? Is it personally relevant to me? Is this important? And so is it going to be on the exam? You have these questions pop up for anything that you teach. Like, am I ever going to use this in real life? Is prime numbers cool? And so Steven makes a joke that, haha, well, cicadas now hatch on prime numbered years. So that's pretty cool. Still not cool. And at that point, if we can say yes, right, that if we say yes to those questions, that I am motivated to learn this, I am interested in it, it is important to me, then we kind of take what I write, like we have a vibe check. What we say is, if the answer is yes to these questions, then I'm going to go into the central root of process. So if it is important to me, then what I'm going to care about are those source and message characteristics like quality of argument. I want you to make me think about it. I want to really get in the weeds and think about why is that the best gin on the market for per price to save my money while still like the mixed drinks. And if I say no, then I don't care. I'm going to go to the peripheral route of persuasion, where I want weak vibes. I want to process shallowly. I don't care. Whatever it is that Babish likes is what I'm going to like. It is that person is very pretty and attractive. I want to buy what they like. It is They had a lot of arguments. They said 20 things, and you just said 2. You trick kids. Oh, I have 5 pennies. You only have 1 quarter. You want 5 pennies? And like, yeah, 5's more than 1, right? Like shallow route of processing, where they don't think that hard about it. And depending on which way we end up, will depend on how much our attitude changes. If we say yes, and we go through the central route of persuasion, we're more likely to have long-lasting changes in our beliefs. But that is how we get people to change their mind. Before I was teaching, I worked in Congress for a year, and part of my job was to meet with people who would come and tell us why our representative should support a bill. She had her own political beliefs, and it was very clear. And I remember this one person came in, and he was on the opposing side. His argument was so good, changed my view. I left that meeting going like, oh my God, Deb, we have to support this thing. And she's like, no, you idiot, we can't support that. And she was like, what are you talking about? That's so incorrect. But I was persuaded by the strength of his arguments, and I still am. And it's very frustrating because it's just one of those things that like I know that like it's just something about me, and I'm very like one-sided in a lot of my political beliefs, but this is one that's like, no, I think we got it wrong. I think this is something that the other side, I think that's good points. Now I think the solution to that is different, but still, I'm been highly convinced now. For the rest of my life, every morning I wake up going, ah, but I've been convinced. The peripheral route is going to be temporary. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, I don't even know the name of that alcohol, but I bought it. And at that point, they won, right? Like all they needed me to do was buy it once. They'll come back next time if they want me to buy it again. Sometimes all you need to do is convince somebody for a moment. Politicians only need you to vote once. They don't need you to vote for another 4 years. Persuasion can be temporary and still achieve our goal. But it just means that if it's temporary, we're probably going to go back to need to be persuaded again and again. And so this whole thing, kind of like putting everything we've learned together, is what we call the elaboration likelihood model. That we think we get a message. Prime numbers are cool. The first thing that happens is we think about ourselves. Do I give a shit? The answer is yes. Then you're going to be convinced by strong arguments, by quality of arguments, by expertise. If you say no, that's not going to work. And it's better for us to spend our time trying to convince you via what we call shallow processing. So kind of superficial reasons, beauty, number of arguments, ability to be liked, these kinds of things. Now, I think ties into this at like a more societal level is that we are constantly being persuaded. And your generation seems to be a little more cool with this fact. It's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, no, Facebook's trying to control your minds. And you're like, yeah. Okay. It's a different vibe. But this was a paper, and it would really, I just like stare at this a lot. What they did is they recorded the number of like words used on it. I don't remember how long this was. Was this like a single day? I didn't write down the time period. Oh, during an incentivized period, right. They paid people to watch CNN or Fox News. Ideally, the opposite of one that you're you would normally watch. So if you generally watch CNN, the researchers paid you to watch Fox News. If you generally watch Fox News, the researchers are paying you to watch CNN. And they had a lot of ways to like check up on you. After like the news played, you'd get a text being like, what was the news on? And so they'd kind of be testing you every night to make sure that you were watching the right channel. And so while they're doing this, the researchers also then are watching both shows and they're keeping track of what is being discussed. What do we see? Are there differences between how Fox and CNN are talking about different topics during this time, during this study?
So, I mean, I'd assume it'd be around 2020 just because of COVID and it
Yep.
says the election at the bottom. And it seems like Fox was mainly focused on like race and protests where CNN was focused more on COVID and election integrity. But I feel like those were the two like
Yep.
real significant ones.
Yeah, great. So what you're seeing is that, the same time this is happening, one network is talking a lot more about race and protests, and the other network is talking a lot more about COVID and election integrity, right? That the fact is, when you turn on the TV, someone else gets to decide what you watch. When you go to your social media app, the algorithm gets to decide what shows up. You don't get to decide, right? Someone else sets the agenda of what it is you're exposed to. If it's on TV, what is it likely to be to you? Like something's being covered by national news. Important, right? So you look at, someone who watches Fox is going to say the most important thing in the world right now is race/protest. While someone who watches CNN is going to look at their TV, and the same person is going to say the most important thing in the world right now is COVID. They're both watching the TV, but someone else gets to decide for them what is most important, right? They're getting persuaded to decide what is important in my life. And that's the idea of agenda control. And they did show that by paying people to watch the other channel, they got them to change their political views. Very cool study. So the media controls the agenda, right? It tells you what's important. Now, along with this is what we call the hostile media phenomenon. That is, when we look at the news, we tend to think the media is biased against us. The media is hostile to my group. Not only are they hostile to my group, but they are in favor of the other group. So a person who watches Fox News might say, the media has a pro-liberal bias. They are hostile against my group if I'm more conservative. And the same CNN person would look and say, no, the media is a conservative view, and they're hostile to liberal views. So this study, I think, shows this really well. This was a long time ago. I can tell just by how pixelated this graph is. But in social psych, we always study the Arab-Israeli conflict, Palestinian-Israeli conflict, very top of our list of things that we study. And so what they did is they had people watch news, right? And they all watched the same news segments. Some of these people had said, I am pro-Israel. They're down here, pro-Israel viewers. Other people said, I am pro-Palestine. They're up here, pro-Arab viewers. And we have people in the middle, and they didn't really have a side. But we're focusing more on these two groups. So we have these two groups, and they watch the news about the conflict. I don't have written down which part of the war this was, but there was conflict ongoing. And what they asked is, how biased is this news? Like, which side does this news that everyone watches the same thing, what side does it support? Where a 5 is, it's neutral, right? Like, it doesn't really take a side. It's pretty balanced coverage. Above is pro-Israel. So like, we think that this news is taking more of Israel's side to the story. And below is, it is anti-Israel, right? It's taking more of the pro-Arab side to the story. Those would be like a pro-Arab take. And we're just asking people, what do you think? You know, you just watched this clip. What did this news clip, what side of the conflict did it take? Do we have our pro-Israeli viewers and our pro-Arab viewers? What is our purple arrows here kind of point to? What's going on?
Pro-Arab viewers have higher knowledge in self-rated knowledge, if I'm reading it correctly.
Just the pro, yeah, you're one step ahead, which is great, but we're not there yet. No, you're good. So pro versus pro here, and as far as the y-axis of, do they think the video was pro-Israel or do they think the video was pro-Arab?
Pro-Israel.
So you said pro-Arab people who are pro-Palestinian, say that the video they just watched was pro-Israel. What happened to our pro-Israeli people? What do they think the video was?
Vice versa.
Vice versa. Right? They think it's pro-Palestinian. They both watched the same video. Hostile media phenomenon. We can watch the same thing and think that the media is against us. Now, Hannah was one step ahead of me, which was great. They also took it one step further and they asked people, do you think you have high amount of knowledge? Do you know a lot about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict? And you get to say, yeah, I know a ton. Or you get to say, honestly, I have no idea. Low. So white dots are people who say, I know a lot about this conflict. Solid dot, they say, I don't really know this much about this conflict. You can look at either one. They both act in a very similar way. But just for purposes of the green arrows, let's look at the pro-Arab, so the pro-Palestinian viewers. They all reported that this clip had a pro-Israeli bias. Half of them are low in knowledge. They say, I don't really know much about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but there's a pro-Israeli bias here. Half of them say, I know a lot about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and there's a pro-Israeli bias in this clip. How are they different? Are those two dots for that piece different?
I'd have to, it'd probably be like, since self-rated knowledge, it'd be like their confidence and information that they have. So where if someone thinks that they have low knowledge, then they're gonna have less radical like opinions on like if this is truly like anti-Israel or pro-Israel. Whereas someone with higher like knowledge is like, no, like I know this for a fact, so they'll feel it more strongly.
Feel it more strongly. Feel what more strongly? You're right there. Yeah.
Either like the pro-Israel or anti-Israel, pro-Arab, that type of.
So if you think that you have a lot of knowledge on this conflict right here, these people, you show that hostile media phenomenon more. You say it's super biased against us. And the same thing happens for if you believe that you have a high amount of knowledge here. That again, you say they are definitely biased against. The more knowledge that we think we have, the more we think the media is against us. that as we increase in knowledge or stated knowledge, which again, maybe isn't true, but like we think that we have more knowledge, then the more we're going to perceive that hostile media phenomenon. So I have my political views. Maybe you've been in classes where professors ask you to look up something about views that you hold or views that you don't hold. And so researchers are curious, how do we expose ourselves to persuasive arguments? Right, that is to say, we can imagine, in this study, it was pro-choice versus pro-life. And they asked people, how important is this topic of abortion to you? Low in your importance, medium in your importance, or this is a very important issue to me? And we told them, I want you to look up both sides. Investigate both sides. Expose yourselves to the other point of view, right? Like learn about it. And we are able to somehow track how long you spend Googling one side and the other side. The solid bar here on the left side are views that match with you. So if you're pro-choice, it's how long you spent looking for pro-choice arguments. If you're pro-life, it's the amount of time you spent looking for pro-life arguments. The bars on the right in like a lighter gray are the opposing side. And so how much, if you were pro-choice, you look for pro-life arguments. If you're pro-life, how much you look for pro-choice arguments. But I told you to look up both sides. People who are really high in their importance, they said, this issue is very important to me. How did they behave when told to look up both sides?
They spent more time looking up their own opinion than the other.
When we are trying to we like to be exposed to things that we already believe in. Right? Like, I don't want to be persuaded against my own views. I want to persuade myself to agree with my views. And so people who find it really important spend a lot of time looking for things that they already agree with, and not as much time looking for things that they would disagree with. And you can see how that difference gets smaller and smaller as it becomes less and less important to us. So that is that we selectively expose ourselves to information that we already believe. We are actively choosing to watch the influencer, the podcast, the talk show that confirms our beliefs. And the last thing is that, excuse me, we are persuaded by ourselves. Persuaded by ourselves. And what we can call previous commitments or attitudes that are tied to who I am are really hard to change. And if I go out in public and say, I am a believer in free college, I now have to defend that. Right? Like I have to do everything I can to keep that identity true. Now that it's public knowledge that this is part of my identity, I'm going to be actively resisting anything that convinces me otherwise. Right? I'm going to get dig deep into my beliefs. And there are two reasons why this might be the case. First is, the more I think about something, the more I'm going to care about it. Uh, and we're going to learn about this next week as well when we talk about groups. But there's this cool thing that happens. Let's say you go into a group and you're like, I would sign a petition to get Dee her job back. And then you go into the group and you're all asked to talk about what we're going to do to help out Dee. And you have your belief, right? Is that I'd sign a petition. But now you're in front of all these people and you're being told you need to think about something that you should do for Dee. I want to be liked. I want to look cool. I want to look unique. And so maybe I say, well, I'd flip a table. And someone else goes, you flip a table. I'd flip 2 tables. And someone else says, 2 tables, I'd burn down a table. And then it starts getting more and more and more intense in our thoughts. And by the end, the group has decided we are going to, trash the commons when all you wanted to do was sign a petition. That the more we think about something, the more polarized, the more like entrenched in that view we're going to get. And this happens both individually. The more I think about it, the more I'm going to get into it, but also as a group, we'll talk about next. And the second one is my birthday pie. I have argued about the birthday pie now quite a bit. Each time I talk to someone about my birthday pie, they say, okay, but like, and they give you like a reason, right? And they're like, oh, but haven't you thought about this? And you know what I do? I store that in my mind. I come up with a better answer. In the shower, you're like, oh, I wish I would have said this. That would have really got them, And so then the next time you have that argument, if someone says it again, you have the answer ready. And every single time you engage in an argument over some belief that you have, someone is like throwing out like a weak argument, right? Like they give you something, they give you a softball, and you're gonna hit it. And then next time you get that softball, you're gonna hit even harder. And then by this time you end up with this like an arsenal of arguments for why your position is correct. And now it's gonna be harder to change. It was easy to change the first time because I was like, oh yeah, I guess I don't know. Now, since I've argued about it 100 times, I have 100 different arguments on for why I'm correct. Attitude inoculation, that by trying to be persuaded, by trying to persuade someone, we are actually kind of making it harder to persuade them in the future. So sometimes it actually doesn't help to get into arguments with people because what you're doing is you're creating an attitude inoculation. The more more I argue with you, the stronger your beliefs are actually going to be. Because I probably won't change your mind in that moment. And now I've just given you new arguments to use in the future. So don't argue with people on social media. It's not worth it. Let it go. Persuasion. All right. Next week, we're going to learn about groups. There is I don't know if I set it up yet. Okay. I have to check and set it up. There will be a pre-class assignment set up very soon. There's basically 6 topics in the groups chapter. You should learn all of them, but you definitely need to learn the one that you're assigned. So the pre-class assignment will be a specific question for you and other people assigned that topic to answer questions about that topic. We're going to come into class. You're going to meet with everybody else who learned about social facilitation. That is, being in a group can make the group better. And you're all going to talk about the answers to that question and come up with like, this is the right answer, And you're all gonna come together in agreement about this is how we should talk about social facilitation. Then you're gonna meet with one of everybody else, so 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, 1-6. So you have 6 different experts, and you're gonna teach each other those 6 terms. So I am the expert in social facilitation for my group. This is what we've discussed as the correct answers for social facilitation. Right, and so then you start with everybody who has social facilitation, so you all know the correct information that you're going to give. Then we get turned into groups, and then you go around and teach each other those terms. Right, so you're going to become an expert in one of the 6 things, and then by the end of class on Monday, we'll have learned all of the 6. And then Wednesday, that group of 6 will do it in class, like group project, applying social facilitation to various stuff. Or not social facilitation, the 6 terms to something, right? It's gonna be all group-based for the groups. Sound good? Great. All right, have a good weekend. See, I saw that, but I swear I did.
It's just the social.